Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
So Kamala Harris did a town hall with CNN, and it went about as you'd expect. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. Yes, Kamala Harris did a town hall with CNN, and the way that it went was the way that things go when you expect them to go certain ways when thinking about the ways they'll go.
What? What?
And if you're thinking, Amala, what the did you just say? Well, buckle up and add a K to the beginning of that sentence because we're gonna go through some of her answers to the many questions that she received on CNN. Let's start off with talking about an issue that's going to be on virtually everybody's mind come November, immigration.
2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration.
But if it was that easy with that executive action, why not do it in 2022, 2023?
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action.
What is going on? It's seeing Anderson Cooper sort of go after her and grill her is something new, I feel like. I think the temperature is changing when it comes to Kamala Harris. And of course, we all know what she's going to do. She's going to say, look at all the work we've done on this issue. After we, quadrupled the numbers, had record rates of illegal immigration through our southern border, look what we've done. We're now deciding to fix the problem in an election year. And she says, you know what? It's going to take Congress in order to really produce a long-term solution to this. That's interesting because in the first days of your administration with Joe Biden, you rolled over 90 executive actions from the Trump administration that really created the illegal immigration problem that we're currently dealing with. So if it was largely being handled with executive action, why couldn't you have done the same through the course of your administration? These are questions that we have to ask ourselves, and I have a feeling she wanted that immigration problem to be produced here in the United States under her administration, not only so that she could start solving the issue during the final stage of her term, but also because it benefits her and the Democrats to have a bunch of illegal immigrants running around in this country. But we don't need to get into that just yet. We have more clips on immigration.
Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw was about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it.
There is a legal process for it. There has been a legal process for it. You just decided, and your entire administration decided, that you are going to ignore the legal process. And interestingly enough, we all know what Kamala does when she gets uncomfortable questions, when she doesn't feel like she's fit to give a valid answer to what she's being asked. She cackles. And normally she's used to these rallies and all these people screaming and there's stuff going on. But when she's in a silent room being grilled by somebody and there's nothing to fill the space, that laugh sounds awfully uncomfortable, doesn't it? It sounds like she's trying to cover up something that she's responsible for. And we all know how Democrats, Kamala Harris being the most progressive among them, felt about Trump's border wall. The border wall was racist. It's xenophobic. It's cutting off America. We're so isolationist. Everybody should be able to go wherever it is they want. That's how they felt about it, and they spoke that openly. Trump asked for $5.7 billion to complete his border wall, and the Democrats shot it down. How many billions did our government spend on immigrants in 2023? $150 billion. You work with those numbers and see what conclusion you come to. And she talks about Trump taking a photo op at Obama's border. I've actually been to the southern border myself, the border of California and Tijuana. I've seen Trump's wall that was stopped from being built, and I've seen the, shall we call it, fencing that existed beforehand. So I'm not exactly sure what Kamala Harris is trying to get to here. On top of that, in her lengthy time as vice president, Kamala Harris said this about not going to the border.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't.
But let's move on.
People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on it? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense, because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
Wow, she can't even answer the question as to whether or not she wants a wall. It is so ridiculous. This is peak political theater, and I don't know how we are not all watching this and understanding exactly what's happening. She is literally bobbing and weaving from answering a very simple question as to what should be done here. It is so ridiculous to hear it out loud. She says she's willing to point out a good idea when she sees one, but cannot answer the question as to whether or not she would be willing to build a wall. And it's because they know they've created this issue, and they know that Trump had things under control, and they cannot say that out loud, because to say something good about Donald Trump is to what? It will fly in the face of your entire campaign. All the work that you've been doing to call him a threat to democracy, to say that he's essentially Hitler, that no longer works if you have to talk about a good idea, and an idea that you stopped that created further issues for every American citizen. Oh my goodness. But she refers to Jackson in his question during that 1 minute clip we just watched. Let's hear the question from Jackson.
Regarding the rapid increase in the migrant population, how will you ensure that every immigrant is integrated into American society safely? What benefits and subsidies will you provide them with, and how long will these benefits and subsidies last for an individual? Most importantly, will the American citizens' taxes pay for these benefits and subsidies, and if so, how much money will be allocated?
First of all, it will, and it has. Your tax dollars have been funding this to the fullest extent possible, it seems.
Well, thank you, Jackson. Let's start with this. America's immigration system is broken, and it needs to be fixed.
Who broke it?
And it's been broken for a long time. And part of what we need to do is always prioritize what we need to do to strengthen our border. I will tell you, I'm the only person in this race among the two choices that voters have. I've personally prosecuted transnational criminal organizations.
Oh my gosh. I think she actually has that sentence tattooed on the palm of her hand. The amount of times that I've heard her say that. She gets asked a question about what she's going to do if she becomes president. I was a prosecutor. As a prosecutor, I worked on this, and no other candidate has done that. Yeah, because Trump wasn't a prosecutor, but Trump had our immigration system pretty much working well, okay? Maybe still a few too many illegal immigrants entering this country, but my goodness, your numbers on top of his, absolutely insane. But she has to point to the fact that I was a prosecutor. Transnational criminal organizations. Every single time without fail.
In the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings, I have spent a significant part of my career making sure that our border is secure and that we do not allow criminals in, and we don't allow that kind of trafficking to happen and come into our country.
And I abandoned those values as soon as I became vice president.
And as my opponent has proven himself. He would prefer to run on the problem instead of fix the problem.
Y'all, I can't with Kamala. I cannot. We already know what her record is with immigration. I don't need to relay it to you. We know that she's created this issue. She's going to say that they proposed a bill that Trump had shot down because he told all of our representatives that we cannot fix this problem while she is a part of this administration. And we know that's not the case. That bill was going to be shot down before Trump had anything to do with it or anything to say about it. And we've actually fact-checked that in a previous video. So go check out our video on all of Kamala's lies. We're actually going to move on here to another clip where Kamala is asked if she can express a mistake that she's made along the way in her tenure as vice president.
Is there something you can point to in your life, political life or in your life in the last 4 years, that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Y'all, I'm having salad for lunch. Word salad. And I'm still starving. Let's think about some mistakes that Kamala Harris might have made. Does the name Laken Riley ring a bell? The nursing student who was killed by an illegal immigrant that entered this country under Kamala Harris. Jocelyn Nungary, the 12-year-old that was raped and murdered by illegal migrants. Does that ring a bell to you? Is that maybe a mistake that you've made? Covering up the fact that Joe Biden is senile and clearly suffering from some form of late-stage dementia. Was that a mistake that you made? I guess not, because it landed you in the position of running for president without being voted for in any way, shape, or form. And that's not a mistake either. And the Democrats are just going to allow that to happen. It's essentially a coup, but I guess we don't have to talk about that. Was it a mistake to never really visit the border, at least until the end of your term? Does the name Jamal Truelove ring any bells for you? The man that you put behind bars, knowing damn well that you had evidence that pointed to his innocence, and at his sentencing, you laughed in his face? Was that a mistake? What about Cherie Peoples, another person who you wrongfully put behind bars? What about the thousands of marijuana convictions you have under your belt? Now you're looking to legalize it in the name of doing something for black men. So was that a mistake? What about the fact that you endorsed sex changes for illegal migrants in jail? A sentence that I can't believe is even coming out of my mouth, but one that did come out of yours. Do you regret that? Especially when you consider that one of those inmates was a person responsible for tying a couple to a boat anchor and dropping them in the ocean to drown. What about your administration's rewrite of Title IX, which allows grown men to be in women's bathrooms, locker rooms, private spaces, and to compete in their sports? Was that a mistake? I could go on and on with example after example of things that she could have said in response to this question, which would have actually shown a little bit of humility, but she's not capable of doing that. Just like she wasn't capable of criticizing Joe Biden and things that he had done during his term that she would do differently in hers.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
But we all know that humility is not Kamala's strong suit.
There are a whole lot of women out here who, one, are not aspiring to be humble.
And as a shock to religious voters everywhere, the pro-abortion, pro-sex change candidate who told Christians at her rally that they're at the wrong rally.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Suddenly has a faith that is super important to her.
But I just called him. I needed that spiritual kind of connection. I needed that advice. I needed a prayer. And there's a part of the scripture that talks about Esther and a time such as this, and that's what we talked about. And it was very comforting for me. And
do you pray every day?
I do pray every day. I do pray every day, sometimes twice a day. I grew up So we grew up a little neighborhood church in Oakland, 23rd Avenue Church of God, and I was raised to believe in a loving God, to believe that your faith is a verb. You know, you live your faith, and that the way that one should do that is that your work and your life's work should be to think about how you can serve in a way that is uplifting other people, that is about caring for other people. And that guides a lot of how I think about my work and what is important.
I'm not a religious person, but what I can do is call bullshit. And that part in the Bible that talks about Esther, you mean the book of Esther? I know she's not a fan of cohesive sentences or brevity, but I think we could have gotten there if we had a little bit of knowledge. And you can see when she's lying, I think most perfectly, when she is asked whether or not she prays every day. No emotion in her face whatsoever. Eyes darted straight at Anderson Cooper. No look back for recollection. She just looks at him and says, I pray every day. Sometimes I pray twice a day. And that smile starts to creep on that she does when she's uncomfortable with something she's saying. And you should watch it for every single time she feels an ounce of discomfort. That smile and that giggle creeps out of her. And of course, it was a somewhat lengthy town hall. There are more clips out there. I do urge you to go and watch them, but it seems like the response to this town hall, even from the left, is that Kamala Harris was a disaster. She does not know how to hold her own. She does not know how to answer questions, and she just tap dances around the issues. And it does make you wonder if this is the sort of coverage that we're getting from the left, and if they're willing to grill her on CNN, are they throwing Kamala under the bus because they know this is going to be a loss for them? Is something coming? Are we going to hear something about Kamala Harris in the coming days that could end her campaign? Because it seems like we are really revving up for the left to abandon her completely. But those are just, my theories. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not typically in the game of making predictions, but something is not adding up right now. Let's listen to what CNN had to say about her town hall.
Republicans would take another hour of Kamala Harris. We'd just press play, let her keep going. We'd pay for another hour to let her keep not answering the questions. I think Anderson's asking her, well, why haven't you done it? You've been there for 4 years. Why have you done any of this? And the word salad answer she gave to that was just mind-boggling. I mean, it's blown up the internet, her answer to that question. I think the things that are troubling for people were her responses to, Van said about what you're going to do to reduce costs when they asked her at the beginning. We're hurting economically. She said, I'm going to prosecute corporations, right? That's not going to lower costs. How are you going to make things better for me? I'm going to prosecute people. Trump bad is not a message that's going to get her elected. Trump bad message, I disagree with you.
Ooh, we're starting to see the little quirks and kinks in everything that Kamala Harris is saying. And I, applaud CNN for platforming this Republican strategist to really lay that out and say that this is what's going on. Because so often you get this sort of coverage on the other end of Kamala Harris speaking, particularly from leftist media, where they pull maybe a few points where she sounds lucid and say this is a strong candidate and she can hold her own and she's certainly a better alternative to a Trump presidency. Is she though? And I'm saying this as somebody who used to absolutely hate Donald Trump. Is she though? And when you can't be honest with yourself about what you just saw, you tweet stuff like this. The Kamala Harris town hall was fine. She's more than capable. Vote against the fascists, for God's sake. The end. But we all know the formula. When all else fails and your candidate can't hold her own, she's speaking in word salad, she's cackling uncontrollably, and she's leaning on the same 5 talking points she's leaned on in every single interview she's done leading up to this election. You just say, orange man bad. And guys, those are my thoughts on the Kamala Harris town hall. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, if you disagree with anything I said in this video, duke it out, but do so respectfully in the comments. We encourage healthy debate. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every day. And I will see you guys on the day that follows today, but is before 2 days from now, a day in which we call tomorrow, in hopes that we will be unburdened by what has been happening today. Bye, guys.